Right, and so at the end of the day, when there's a relationship there, China owns your research.
Right.
And if you're researching something sensitive, that's a big issue.
There was an article today where they've confirmed that Huawei has some sort of third-party backdoor with a lot of their electronics. You know,
Yeah.
'cause there was a lot of speculation to why the United States was banning Huawei from the major providers, because they were very close to releasing some, and they have some amazing phones, and they were really
I
close
refuse to use them. But
Yeah.
Yeah, just on principle. In fact, like one of my girlfriends, she's kind of sponsored by Huawei. She's European. Wanted to take a selfie of me, and I was like, there's no way that my face could ever be, in your phone.
Really?
Yeah,
That-
no, absolutely.
Tell
not.
me why. Like, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, Huawei is really another just an apparatus of the main party, the government, and I really think that Huawei, with respect to the next era of the digital world, is the next Sputnik. Like, it is the Sputnik issue of our time. We should be doing everything we can to not allow Huawei to have this big market share. And the person who started it was somebody that had a lot of party connections to the, I think he was a general or something. And it's really, they really operate in a way that's very opaque. And anyone doing business in China will have to have connections to the government, especially when you're that big. And because it's a government that has such totalitarian control over everything, you can expect that whatever information or that they would have to answer to the government, whatever the government wants. If you're willing to put your privacy in the hands of an entity like that, go ahead. But know also that the Chinese government has enacted all these mass surveillance policies. I just wouldn't trust. I just wouldn't trust them.
So, what is different between Huawei and there's many Chinese manufacturers of cell phones and
Like Xiaomi.
Yeah.
It's the government connection.
And Huawei's
also
the only one that has that deep government connection?
Well, the founder at least was the general. That much I know. And just a lot of party connections, and just it's also heavily subsidized by the government, which is one of the ways that China has been competing kind of unfairly in global markets, right? When you can drive out innovation in the United States by making sure that your local version is so competitive on prices that they can't match you. So in a way, it's like a form of economic warfare, which is one of the issues that Trump has really pushed back on. It's the China trade issue.
And he's been criticized about that. Do you think he's correct?
On China?
Yes.
On China, yes. I do think he's correct. He's been pushed back on. It's interesting because I think the Democrats were a lot more, protectionist when it came to trade, right? The Republicans and the Libertarians are always like free trade, everything. Like, let's globalize the world. There was the whole Thomas Friedman position when he wrote about it in Lexus and the Olive Tree, that if we globalize the world, that you lift a lot of people out of poverty, your economic pie grows, but your politics shrink. That was the idea, right? No two countries that have McDonald's would fight a war or something like that. That was the theory. And in the case of China, obviously that didn't happen. Right? Like the part about the politics changing. There was this quote by a Tiananmen protester. He said, "If the free world doesn't change China, China will change the free world."
Whoa.
And if you think about what happened with the NBA, the whole Daryl Morey.
Yeah, explain that, because that was shocking to me. Because the way they were capitulating to China, I was a little stunned. Because it was so open.
Yeah.
And can you explain what happened?
So, Daryl Morey, who was the GM of the Houston Rockets, he tweeted out basically a little picture that showed that he supported the Hong Kong protesters. And the Hong Kong protesters have been at it since July of last year, 2019. They have been protesting the incursion of Chinese control into the supposedly autonomous region. China promised them that there would be two systems, one country, two systems, after the handover in 1997 from the British to China. They've slowly kind of eroded that in many ways. and their freedoms have been kind of diminishing over time. The straw that broke the camel's back was actually this policy that they passed, this law they passed that said that anyone can be extradited to China for trials. Basically, it was after a case that happened, a criminal case. And the Hong Kong people knew that this law, if it goes into effect, basically gives the Chinese government legal right to disappear or kidnap anyone and bring them for trial in some sort of kangaroo or show trial in China. And that has happened. So booksellers, it's always the booksellers in Hong Kong have been kidnapped because they were publishing these insider accounts, like dirty secrets of the CCP. Whenever there was a leak, because the Chinese Communist Party is huge, the Politburo is huge, and so there was a bookseller called Causeway Books, and they were publishing all these accounts from within the Chinese Communist Party, and the owner of that bookshop one day just disappeared, and he ended up in China, basically a forced kidnapping. And he was released. I think he was, he did his jail time, and now he's setting up another bookshop in Taiwan. But that law, basically, it would just have allowed China to do that legally this time. So the Hong Kong youth were up in arms. They were tired of all the ways that their way of life had changed since the British handed it over. And in a way, they were kind of pining for the good old times when they were under a colonial, an English colonial master, which was one of those moments that we want on the left. And so Daryl Morey tweeted this out, and of course, you know how big the China market is for the NBA, right? All these players have contracts with them. In fact, the Houston Rockets had a lot of contracts with the Chinese CCTV for broadcasts. They also had merchandising opportunities, sneakers that were made there, and that caused a huge outcry in China. They were just like, oh, he's disrespecting us, and they were able to force him to basically make a groveling tweet that said, oh, I'm sorry for hurting the feelings of the Chinese people. And then all the other, some NBA players actually came out and kind of took the side of the Chinese government. Oh wait, who are we to, they kind of did this backpedaling.
Oh
thing.
my
So strong
God.
on other forms of activism here, like the NBA when it came